I'm going to share a story about two women who have never met, but through both of their decisions, it has impacted my life for my time here on earth, but also impacted my life for eternity as well. So one of those women let go and spent most of her life living with secrets and shame and regrets and wonders. The other opened her home and her heart, making many sacrifices on my behalf. Yet she spent most of her life living in fear and trying to escape the unknown. And in the midst of all that, I want to share the story of a loving God that never let go through the process. So, do y'all ever get songs stuck in your head that just won't go away? I have one that's been sticking in my head for the last few months. If y'all listen to any Christian genre, Toby Mac has a song out, Never Early, Never Late. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I wake up in the middle of the night singing that song. It just has a great beat to it, and so it sticks in my head. But he based that song on Isaiah chapter 52, verses 10 through 12. And I want us to focus on that verse some as we move into my story tonight. I love it coming from the Message. I'm very visual. I like to have that imagery. And so if we read that verse 10 from the Message, it says, God has comforted his people. He's redeemed Jerusalem. God has rolled up his sleeves. All the nations can see his holy muscled arm. Everyone from one end of the earth to the other sees him at work doing his salvation. And I love that imagery of just picturing in the middle of our mess, he's like, all right, here we go again, and rolling up his sleeves and getting right down in the dirt with us and figuring out what we need to bring us salvation. And so as I think about that, I see throughout my story many times over where God rolled up his sleeves and said, let me work on this. You have no idea what I have planned for you. And so that's where our story is going to start tonight. So my twin sister, I have a twin sister. Some of you all have met her. But we were born on December 29th, 1965 in Muncie, Indiana. So now y'all can figure out how old I am. But remember that date of December 29th. It's going to become more special towards the end of my story. But for reasons we did not know, our birth mother was unable to care for us and placed us immediately for adoption. On January 6th, 1966, so 8 days later, we were lovingly adopted by Janet and Harold Waller. Our adopted mom, from here on out, I'll refer to her as my mom because she has been my mom through all of my life and sacrificed and given to me. But she was unable to have children due to a rare kidney disease that she had when she was in high school. And so the doctors had informed her that she would not be able to carry a full-term child, that her kidneys would never be able to withstand that on her body. So she and my dad went into marriage knowing they were going to adopt. That was the way they were going to expand their family. So they began immediately praying for the child that would be placed in their home and for the leadership of that. They waited, I think you had to be married 3 years back then to begin the process, but they began the process when they were able and eligible to do so along the way. Back then, adoptions were very different. Pretty much you were put on a list, and when your name was next, then you were the next recipient of whatever child came. Today, things are very different. Birth mothers are able to choose. There's letters written, and you could be on a waiting list forever. But Mom and Dad knew that they were next in line, so Mom gave her notice at work and told him, said, now, when we get a call, that'll be my last day of work. So that call came, and she was at work, and they let her know that there wasn't one, there were two of them. And she said she remembers screaming out, there's two, and they all celebrated, and she walked out the door of work. And so she called my dad, and my dad was visiting my grandparents, and you would have to really know my dad to really appreciate. He's very stoic and very much the budgeter and the planner. And so she called him and said, Harold, there's two. And he said he just slumped to the floor and put his head between his knees and kept saying, there's two of them. What am I going to do with two of them? There's two of them. So Dad always jokes that they prayed too hard. And I just told him he got double the joy. I'm not sure they always felt like they were getting double the joy. But anyway, so that was the beginning of our life and our experience with our mom and dad along the way. But we could see God rolling up his sleeves. He answered Mom and Dad's prayer to have a child or two, to raise and to be their own. And he answered our prayer because we were without a home. Well, not our prayer, but our need. We didn't know to pray an infant, but our need that we needed a home. We needed a place to be loved and nurtured and protected. So another part of rolling up his sleeves is in the 60s, there was some scientific research going on where they actually split a lot of twins and then did research on them to see, were they still similar? Did they do different things? And so I've always counted it a blessing that I was able to be raised with my best friend, because my sis is my best friend along the way. So we've always been appreciative that God allowed us to be together and be raised together. We were always raised knowing our adoption story. It was a part of who we were. I don't ever remember Mom and Dad having the talk. It was just from knee high up. That was a part of our story that, we prayed and the Lord gave us to you and gave you to us. And so we never felt bitter or abandoned by those choices. God filled our home with love, with opportunity, with the Word of God. We were raised from little to be in church and to worship and to know God's love for us. So we never felt like we were missing out. But sometimes as a child, I would get curious, wondering what my birth mom looked like. My twin sister and I do not look anything alike. She's lots shorter than me, blonde hair, blue eyes. Back then I had dark hair, more of a brunette. I was always taller. Her feet were like baby shoes, and I had boat feet. So we were just built different, looked different. So I always wondered, maybe I look like my birth mom. Maybe what would that look like? And I pictured her with this long, flowing black hair and big brown eyes. And I chuckle now because what I was really doing was putting my adopted mom's looks on my birth mom, but with long hair, because my mom had short hair. But anyway, I would picture all that. But again, never felt abandoned or that there was anything wrong. To be adopted is really a beautiful thing. We're all God's adopted children. And so it's a beautiful thing that God put into place. Even back in Moses' day, my brain left. Moses' day was adopted. So it's a beautiful thing. Although we didn't realize it until we were much older, our mom lived in fear of our birth mother finding us. When she would take us to the grocery store and someone would comment on, oh, you have twins, which you're going to draw more attention when you have two, right? she would fear that that was somebody that knew the birth family and that they would go tell the birth family, hey, I saw your girls at such and such place, you know. She feared when we got ready to go to school that we'd end up, well, let me back up. One day, she was at the state adoption agency with us, and somebody came out and quickly ushered her into a room with us and said the birth mother is here with some other children, with her other children. So Mom knew we had siblings. We didn't know the background of that, didn't know the story of that. But Mom feared us going to school and ending up in school with our siblings. So we moved to the town next door, to Daleville. Again, we didn't realize that. We didn't know that was the motivation for that. But we lived there through kindergarten through second grade. And we always heard Mom say, I want to move to Tennessee. I want to move to Tennessee. They're nicer in Tennessee. They have better manners. And we had some distant family here. I had some distant aunts and uncles. So when we were 8, we moved to Tennessee. I now realize she never felt safe being in Indiana for fear of our birth family finding us, and that was her real motivation. All my grandparents were still in Indiana. They eventually moved this direction, but they were still there. But we've had a wonderful life here, and things were great along the way. But as we got older, again, you get curious as time moves on and wonder, I wonder what those siblings would have been like, or I wonder if we look like somebody else, or whatever. So that curiosity was always there. So fast forward a few decades. I'm not going to walk you through all my life, but in a few decades, I had the awesome experience of adopting my son, Anderson, because I was told that I was not going to be able to have children. And the experience was overwhelming and beautiful to be able to have that opportunity. When we went through the adoption process, it was very different, and they gave us the option of having an open adoption. If the birth mother chose to still stay in contact with their child, that we were able to do that. I really had to pray about whether I was willing to do that or not. But I came to terms with it and decided I could do an open adoption. That would be a good thing. But Anderson's mom chose not to have an open adoption. And I regretted it because I could never tell her thank you for the blessings she gave me in my life. To have the son and to make me a mother that I had spent years praying for. So again, that brought back those feelings of, wow, I wish I could tell my birth mom, thank you, that you gave us the opportunity that you did along the way. So again, just thinking on what ifs and how to's. So fast forward another 25 years. I know I don't look that old, but humor me, it has been. In 2019, I began participating in a group here called Leadership Cheatham County. And it was once a month. We had different areas of the county that we would learn about. We learned about government. We learned about the school system. We learned about industry in the county. It was a great opportunity. But one of our assignments was to do a genealogy that would be turned into the Historic Society here. And so I began doing that. I've always had kind of fun digging into that. And I had some colorful people in our family, and so it was fun to research and find out other things about them. But as I was doing that, I kept thinking, there's still a part of me on this tree that's missing. And it's my beginning. I don't have my beginning story. And every time you go to the doctor, the first question they ask is, what's your family history and medical? And Sis and I could never tell them, well, our family has heart conditions or cancer, it's always, we don't know. We don't know. So a couple years actually before this, my sister had decided to do the 23andMe. Y'all might see that advertised along the way. It's a DNA test, but it was supposed to come back with, here's your weaknesses, or here's the things that you have in common and so forth, or things to be concerned about health-wise. And I was a little upset that she did that because I was afraid she would open some skeletons that we didn't want to open. But by this time, I just felt ready. God had prepared my heart. Never early, never late. He was rolling up his sleeves because he had a huge plan for our life. So I decided I would do the 23andMe. And I kind of joked and said, if it says I don't have a sibling, we know this thing's, kind of a joke and a farce because you're my twin sister. That or we were traded at birth and I didn't have a twin sister. But anyway, I decided to do that. And so on December 3rd, I received my results that morning. Your results are ready to open. I was at work, so I didn't even have time. I think I texted Sis and said, hey, my results are in. We'll look at them tonight. About 3 o'clock that afternoon, I get a message through the DNA portal, and it says, hi, my name's Lisa, and I'm just wondering if you know my mom. You're showing up as a cousin on my DNA list, but I'm not familiar with your name or your, history, but I'm looking for people that'll write my mom. She's getting older, and so if you know my mom, would you just write her a letter? And I messaged her back and said, oh, Lisa, we don't know anybody. This is our family, and we were adopted. We weren't really looking to meet anybody. We just kind of wanted to know the story on the side, But anyway, I told her, said, you're in Texas and your family's in Oklahoma, and I don't really think we're probably related. We were adopted in Muncie, Indiana. And she messaged back and said, oh, I have family in Muncie. I have an aunt and a cousin there, and they're just wonderful. I just love them. And she said, but we've never heard family gossip that somebody gave their children up for adoption. And she started going through, it could be this person, and it could be that one, and it could be my aunt this, and maybe it was my uncle. I was like, Lisa, I have no clue. I have no idea. And she said, you know what? My Aunt Marvilla still has a good mind, and she probably knows. I'm going to call her tomorrow. I said, that's fine, Lisa, whatever. And we left it. So in less than 24 hours, I get a message from Lisa, and her first words are, you have a sister, and she'd like to connect with you. So I stopped reading immediately and called my twin sister so that we experienced it together. And we read through the message and the story that was there along the way. There was a lot of fear, a lot of confusion, a lot of disbelief. It happened so fast that Lisa is just this incredible genealogist. She just knew everybody. She knew who to contact. But we saw God roll his sleeves up in this too, because the next morning she decided not to call Marvilla, her aunt, who is my birth mom. She called my sister Libby instead. And the importance of that is my birth mom had held this secret for 55 years. She had never shared with anyone. Her mom knew, and one of her sisters knew. Libby was 11 when we were born. We had 5 siblings, but Marvilla hid in so much shame and regret of what she had done. But the sister who knew, one time tried to break it to the siblings that they had sisters. And Marvilla had hushed it and said, that's not the case, and it was ended. So if she would have called Marvilla, I think Marvilla probably would have said, oh no, I don't know of anybody, and we still wouldn't know our story. But she called Libby, and Libby remembered the comment, and she said, I remember. And she said, I remember my mom being so huge and being in bed. And she was told that her mom had a tumor and that she was going to the hospital to get the tumor removed. So we joke around with her now and say, we're your tumors. And we would have been her tumors had we lived there, because at 11, she would have been our caregiver. But Libby was 11, and we had a brother, Greg, that was a year younger than her, and Randy was like 2 years younger than her. They all were stair steps. Then we had a brother, Kevin, and a sister, Deborah. Unfortunately, our two youngest, Deborah and Kevin, have passed away, and so we won't ever have an opportunity to further a relationship with them. Our brother, Randy, is estranged from the family, so he does not know that we've connected with Libby at all. And our brother, Greg, has been against the connection and felt like we were dishonoring our parents by making the connection. And we never meant for it to dishonor either side of our parents, but it did bring some pain, and it brought it opened up some old wounds. So we connected with Libby on Facebook that night, on Messenger, and started a sister thread, and messaged for like 6 hours that first night, just nonstop. And through the next couple of weeks, we just continued to message and get to know each other. And she would send us pictures of our siblings, and we'd send her pictures of us. But she knew she had to face her mom and tell her mom that she knew the secret. And it was a very hard time for Libby, and it took a lot of courage and a lot of effort to go to her mom and say, hey, Mom, I know your story, and the girls have connected with us, but she did. And Marvilla cried and cried and cried, and for a long time would not look at pictures of us, didn't want Libby to talk about it. She was so ashamed, and she was sure that we would, be bitter or angry with her along the way. But she eventually opened up to us writing letters, and so we began writing and just letting her know that we had such respect for her and such love for her that she was willing to admit that she was a single mom already trying to put food on the table for 5 children. And she knew that she could not meet the needs of 2 more babies in the house. And our birth father, whom we don't know, she has chosen not to reveal that, and that's okay with me. But he was unwilling to step up and accept the responsibility of any kind of, she said, at the hospital, when she realized there were 2, she had no idea there were 2 until we were born. She called him again and said, please, they're twins, please don't. I don't want to adopt, I want to keep them, but he would not. And so she made a loving sacrifice that night to give us up for adoption. So God went to work with Libby and went before her in being able to share with Marvilla and be able to address that with her. My sister and I had a hard task in front of us too. We didn't realize how hard it was going to be, but we took well, we took a pizza over to Mom and Dad's and told them we wanted to talk and let them know that we had found our birth family. And it brought up so much fear and anger and resentment that they had spent 55 years running from us finding our birth family. We never meant to hurt them in any way or disrespect them, and we let them know that night, you are our mom and dad. You have raised us, you have loved us, like from the bottom of our hearts, our whole being, you are mom and dad. But it still brought up a lot of the fear. And so we were not able to express a lot of our events with Mom and Dad. We had to keep it kind of low-key, that we were talking to Libby or anything about Libby. So in February, so that was December, February, Libby and her daughter Valen and grandson Landon traveled to Tennessee and spent the day with us, and we got to actually meet her and love her and talk to her. And we know we'll never have sibling stories of growing up, and do you remember when you stole my sweater, or do you remember when, we won't have those stories, but we can be sister friends is what we call it. So we have loved our experience with Libby, and Libby is just super cool, but she has a van that she's converted to a camper, and she travels with what she calls her van nation. So she travels all over, and they camp and do neat things. So she comes through Tennessee quite often and stops, and we get to see her and visit with her when she comes through. So we've really enjoyed getting to know Libby and to know more about her. So Thanksgiving of this year, my twin sis and I decided it was time to pay Libby a visit. And my sister and I had never even gone on a road trip, just the two of us. We realized while we were headed to Indiana that it was our first sister trip. We had gone with husbands and children and parents, but just the two of us. So we were giddy anyway. And Libby had told us, I can't wait to have a pajama party with my little sisters in the house. So I bought us all matching pajamas so we could look alike. And so we enjoyed getting there on a Friday night and visiting with Libby and laughing and playing with her grandson, who rocks at the game Farkle. If y'all know that game, he beat us all. And he loves garbage trucks. At 5 a.m. on Saturday morning, he was waking us up because the garbage truck was coming, and he would run out there, and the guy, I'm on a rabbit trail, but the guy would let him get in the truck and dump his grandma's garbage into the garbage truck. So that's his dream, is to own his own garbage. But we had fun with her. But on Saturday morning, we were able to go and meet our birth mom. She was willing. She was very apprehensive, very nervous, scared, but she was willing to let us come in and to visit with her. So again, God's rolling up his sleeves to prepare hearts. So we were able to walk in, and she immediately asked us to hug her, and we had some sweet conversation. She shared, her regrets, and asked us to forgive her. We told her there was nothing to forgive, that we loved her as she was, but the shame and the regret that she had. And she kept looking at us, and one of the things that really hit home to me was she said, I'm looking at my girls for the first time. Because when they told her that she would be adopting, they never let her see us. They never let her touch us. So she spent 55 years wondering what we looked like. Were we safe? She said, I would just pray that you were safe, that you were being loved. because I didn't know if you were being abused. I didn't know if you were living, if you were dead. So she spent 55 years with that hurt and wondering. So as much as she was trying to keep a secret, and she said she would hear somebody say, well, I'm a twin. And she would wonder, is that my girls? Is that one of my girls? So it was just sweet connection. But remember, I wondered if I looked like my birth mom because I didn't look like anybody. No, my sister looks just like her and really looks more like her than any of our other siblings. She loves everything my sister loves. Well, we had lots in common too, but my sister loves to write and she's very creative. And our birth mother said, well, I thought about going into journalism. And Amy was like, I went into journalism for a while. And she said, but my passion is interior design. Well, that's what my sister does for a living. So it was fun to see those connections, even though we had been apart since birth, that she made those connections. So it really burdened me, the sacrifice and the pain that she had endured all these years to keep it secret, for no one to walk along beside her and shoulder that, and to always wonder about her girls. So later that night, we were back at Libby's house, and she called Libby and asked what we were doing. And I hope as Nazarenes you'll forgive me, but we told her, well, we're sipping our wine and giggling like all girls do. And she laughed and she said, well, it's your bedtime, and that's what all good moms do. So I knew that was her way of getting to be mom for just a moment with us. So we had a good chuckle. But when we hung up, Libby said, I have not heard my mom that joyful in years. She said, I could just tell Mom is happy for the first time in a long time. So the next day, we went back and visited a little while longer and got to enjoy some more stories and all. Well, that evening, our brother, Greg, called Libby's house. He had no idea that we had come to Indiana. He lives in Florida, and he called Libby, and he was like, have you talked to Mom in the last couple of days? And Libby was like, yeah, why? And he said, she sounds completely different. He said, I don't know what's going on, but that's not our mom. Like, she's happy and joyful and sounds like, she's at peace. And Libby laughed. He said, well, the girls came to see her. He couldn't believe that his mom was open to meeting us and that we had come to do that. And so, again, just a sweet moment to experience and to see God's hand at work as we went through. So we came back home, and we've enjoyed writing and sharing different things along the way. And then on December 12th, I get a text. I'm sitting over here in church, and I see a text come across my phone, and it was a phone number I didn't recognize, so I just kind of ignored it. And later that day, I thought, I wonder what that text was. I figured it was a scam of some sort, somebody wanting something. And it started out, hi, this is your brother Greg, and I want to meet you. So God worked again and rolled his sleeves up again, and he said, I'm going to see Mom for Christmas. And he said, I'm going to be driving back through Tennessee on December 29th. That was our birthday. And he said, could we meet? And we said, sure. So we met in Murfreesboro at at it's called First Watch, but a restaurant there that's more breakfast and lunch and then closes down. So we met for breakfast and we closed him down at 3 and could have stayed many hours more just visiting and talking. And he told us, he said, we may not have been raised together, but you are my sisters and you will always be my sisters. My sister and her husband were in Florida a couple weeks ago, and they were able to meet back up with him and his wife and have a little more time together. But that was so precious because he had been so against any of this all along, and just to see God continue to move hearts and minds. But he said he knew when his mom allowed us to come see her, and when she felt at peace, that it was then okay to meet us. He was waiting on his mom and respecting her, and I just have so much respect for that. And Sis and I have kept this story very, very quiet over the last 2 years. I've shared with a few of you in here, but we've not shared publicly. So tonight's my first time to go truly public with it, but we feel like it's now at a comfortable stage that we can do that and not be disrespectful to anyone. So we got to meet Greg and visit with Greg, but God still wasn't finished. A few weeks later, my mom's talking to us, and she says, you know, I've been praying that the Lord would remove fear from my heart in this situation. And she said, the next time Libby or Greg come through town, I want to meet them, and I want to be a part of that part of your life as well. And she has, to my knowledge, she has not done this yet, but she said, and I really feel like I need to write Marvilla a letter. Wow. It's just been such a beautiful story of reunion and of expanding boundaries, of things that I could have never dreamed would have been possible, you know, in my wildest. So now I'm dreaming even bigger, and I think, wow, wouldn't it be neat if I had a picture? We couldn't get pictures up tonight. I had some pictures to show y'all, so y'all missed my cute baby picture, but maybe another day. But I thought, would it not be wonderful to have my mom and dad and Marvilla and Libby and Greg and Amy and I all in one picture to show the fullness of our family? So we'll see if that's in God's plan, but I'm truly looking forward to that and what he has next in our plans for us. But we fell in love with Greg. We fell in love with Libby and with Marvilla. So I want to end by just encouraging that your story may be very different from my story. You may be struggling with very different past, or with choices or broken lives. But please know that God is rolling up his sleeves. He's showing his muscled arms on your behalf. As Toby Mack says, he's never early and he's never late. But I want to return to that passage in Isaiah chapter 52 and read verses 11 and 12. It says, out of here, leave this place, don't look back. So he's encouraging us to leave whatever dark is there, whatever secrets we have, whatever hurts and pains. And it goes on with a little bit more, but at the end it says, but you don't have to be in a hurry. You're not running from anybody. God is leading you out of here. And the God of Israel is also your rear guard. So you are safe in the muscled arms of God. And I hope that you will feel that and be able to reflect on that in your story as well. So thank y'all for being a part and listening to my story tonight. And I'd love to end with opening to the floor if anybody else has a story they'd like to share of a time that they saw God roll up his sleeves and work wonderful things in their lives. And I apologize to those of you on Facebook because I'm not savvy like Sean and thought I cannot manipulate Facebook and in-house conversation. But if anyone has a comment on Facebook, I'd love to answer that or share that as well. Okay. Then I think that will end us. We did prayer time already, so I guess we'll just end. Is that okay? Yeah. So thank you all for being here tonight, and hope God blesses you through the week. So thank you.